So moving on to the third section of our discussion tonight, and it is actually about the term that Nick and Scott have also already mentioned before, and maybe you've seen it on our little postcard, the so-called retail apocalypse, and whether it is simply a hyped-up word or if it's really happening. I know that Scott has a really strong opinion about it, so why don't you go ahead and tell us about it a little bit more.
Fill me in. I'm not, what's the retail apocalypse?
So the retail apocalypse, the apocalypse, going back to the book of Revelations being the end of all things, right? It's biblical. This is like, this is the end. There's nothing beyond this point, right? So this term has been batted around by the real estate industry, by the retail industry, by product developers, as like there's no way forward. There's nothing that we can do because it's all going to end. And I don't think that's true. I think it's going to end for brands that are simply transactional, that brands that don't have good stories, or what I call the four horsemen of the retail apocalypse: bad product, bad service, bad spaces, and bad social currency. If you're not able to engage and evolve as a brand, you're not going to be around, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because there's oversaturated market. There's lots of product. There's lots of brands that will buy product and sell another brand, and then it's rebadged, and then it's like, well, we didn't need the crap in the first place. Why do we need it now in your place? And it's like, and all the retail or the real estate that goes with that, all the logistics that are all that industry, it's going to evaporate. It's already evaporating. There's one of my favorite quotes was from like 2014. They were interviewing the UK high street folks about like the 50% vacancies on the high street in the UK. All the retail spaces were empty. And all the real estate agents said, we're never going to fill these spaces again, ever, period. And that's just what we're looking at. We've overbuilt these things, we've overvalued these things. People can't afford the rent, the internet, Amazon, everybody's killing us. Like, there's no reason to even continue having these spaces, so we got to figure out what to do with all of this empty stuff we've built. And that's kind of the face of the apocalypse, right? There's just it's a war zone that looks like the 1980s New York, where trash cans are burning and like nobody's buying stuff. It does sound fun, but it's I think it's hype. I mean, I think there are a lot of brands that are facing the end of their lives, and it's because they don't have anything of value to offer to people anymore. And part of that is that they're not able to observe what's going on in consumer behavior. They're not able to observe what's going on in their competition. They're not able to observe how the markets are being disrupted by factors outside of their view, their cone of vision. And if you're not able to do that, you're not able to adapt and evolve and be able to look at what's next or be able to pivot. And I have very little sympathy for brands that can't take the blinders off and just kind of look around. It's fun.
So basically what you're saying is that the retail apocalypse is real for brands or shops that don't recognize that purely transactional plays is not going to be able to survive.
It's also real for real estate because there is an overbuilt infrastructure for large stores, and large stores don't really belong around anymore. There certainly isn't enough of a market for large retail spaces full of merchandise. It's just not a smart way to merchandise a store. It's not smart to have that much inventory spread all over the place. I mean, there's lots of real reasons why there is a kind of apocalypse for real estate people and for big brands. I think there's also there's a couple of really big cultural trends. There's a shrinking middle class. There's less of the sort of notion that if I buy more stuff, I'll feel like I'm wealthier. I'm chasing after something that's, this sort of social mobility through acquisition of junk. That's gone away. Even you look at Marie Kondo. I mean, like the people buy for joy more. Even if you're buying something practical, you're buying it because it's going to be something meaningful for you. This practical thing. If you're shopping for your kitchen, for just utility things you need, you want to buy something that gives you a little bit of joy and that you really like. So that's where those stories and that brand and that social currency comes back into play, because people are shopping for the kitchen like, well, I'm going to take an Instagram picture of this next dinner that I'm making, so I want to make sure the props are right. They're shopping for props. In some cases, when they're shopping for really practical things, or even for apparel, they'd rather have fewer, nicer things in most cases than even the fast fashion thing. Fast fashion is still there. It's still has momentum because, there's a sort of disposable aspect of Instagram. But even that, I mean, there's not enough business rationale to have fast fashion last another 5 or 10 years. And how many Uniqlos and stores like that can you have? Filling all the malls, or all the malls can be full of that stuff? No way. And malls are definitely closing. And even the ones that are opening up with as amusement parks. They're not opening as.
They're all called retail.
They want Rosé
They all want
mentioned.
Rosé
Yeah.
mentioned in there. Yeah, exactly.
That's actually interesting. I just read a retail report from end of November saying that retail leases are actually going down all over Manhattan, and even though the occupancy is kind of rising, but it's still a lot more by places like restaurants or food courts or just pop-up experiences than long-term classical retail spaces. So I think that goes back to to what we've been saying during this entire discussion of retail as a destination, as a social activity, like you said, and attaching some sort of story and value to the product and have it as a cultural artifact and not just as a product per se. So with all this in mind, so what do you think will this say for the future of retail? Where are we headed? What's going to happen?
I think there's a couple of directions, and I think one of the easiest answers is technology, the innovation of technologies, and brands like Amazon and direct shipping, and that's going to take over the world. We're not going to have much else. And I think it's partially true. I think the convenience aspect of it and the infrastructure that's been built by brands like that are going to fulfill the needs. If I don't have to leave my house to go to the grocery store, I just press a couple buttons and things show up. It shows up automatically. That's a whole chunk of time that now I don't have to fight for, right? It's already there. I don't have to worry about it. Which means that the time I do have, I can spend on experiences. I can go and actually spend time on things that I value rather than just the things I need, right? I think that the increase of experiences, and I'm waiting for the next word for what experiences means. There needs to be another version of it because
it's terrible name.
It's a terrible.
It makes
It's overused.
But in our culture,
it makes no sense.
It makes no sense. It just anything can be an experience. I can punch myself in the face and it's an experience, right? It doesn't have value, but there's nothing that in our culture that really has that sort of transformative aspect about a sensory. What is a sensory processing that yields an emotional result? We don't have a word for that. But I think we're going to see more and more brands develop spaces that become show spaces that show us and demonstrate not just the product, what product can do and how to experience that product, but what is the web of ideas surrounding that product and what's the awesomeness that, begins to form partnerships and association with lifestyle and bigger ideas that you see brands like Lexus doing this, right? The intersection space is about craft, it's about appreciation of detail. It's not about them selling cars. It's just about them recognizing
the car.
There's no car. No, there's icons about their brand, but it's about the beauty of appreciation of craft and sharing that with other people in a space. I think we're going to see more of that sort of development. Mm-hmm. As more and more brands realize that spaces are no longer about transaction; they're about experience.
Spaces can still be about both things, but I do think that the idea of massive global brands is going to be really different. Just to use the dinosaur analogy, these massive brands where it's sort of one size fits all for the planet, really going to become pretty extinct pretty quickly. I think even when you look at conglomerations of luxury brands, they do things in very localized ways, like the LVMH brands have two different things in Asia and marketing and their retail experience and the product assortment. And I think you'll see that there'll be more healthy, small and mid-sized brands that are more localized, and that even brands that have global reach will be doing things in more localized ways. Definitely smaller retail footprints, and the retail experiences that are larger experiences will be made up of smaller experiences that are glued together. It's like the Fiorucci is probably the forerunner of all this stuff, but you have Dover Street or places like that. Those are interesting places where you can experience lots of brands and lots of stories and go through it. And people go to Dover Street just for entertainment. Not everyone's going there has the budget or is going to come out of there with a product in their hands, but they will go there and experience it. I think that's what you're going to see more of, what it's going to feel more like. And I think Los Angeles, actually, I was just out there recently, and I think that's a really good lab right now where you can see a lot of really, really interesting retail and types of stores, and types of environments that are in all the different downtown areas, especially. And it's so different. The stores that you see out there for some brands really different than a New York store, and it's a great thing to see what's going on out there.
We're gonna do questions and answers in a second. So, does anybody of you have an idea or a new word for experience?
Word for experience.
It's hard because, like, like what I do isn't new. It's like one of the oldest industries in the world. Like you buy a ticket, you see a show. Like, and even like these walk-through experiences, like P.T. Barnum had one in Lower Manhattan in the 1840s. He was an American Museum. He didn't start the circus until he was 60. Like he had a Rosé mansion, but it was for like oddities. It was about getting humbugged. He had a thing that you went to. It was called the Egress, and everyone's like, "Oh, you have to go see the Egress." And it was a door that went outside, and then you had to buy a ticket to come back in. But it wasn't. People didn't get mad at him because everybody's friends were like, "Oh, you're going to the American Museum? You have to see the Egress." And it was about people playing jokes on each other.
Fantastic.
And so, like, these aren't buy a ticket, walk through a thing to get entertained. Isn't new? It's really, really, really old. So, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, I don't kind of care. But it's just like, you kind of have to segment it because it's all different things. Like, your experience serves a very, very different purpose than my experience. And so, like, they really can't be lumped in. You can't just talk, you can't hit them all in one stick. Right? Like, everything is unique and different, and, like, everything serves a completely different purpose. Like, Museum of Ice Cream, like, they're just opening here, and, like, I always think that their purpose is, like, I don't think they think this is their purpose, but I think what they do is like they've replaced Sears portrait studio. You used to go to a mall and take photos. If you go to Museum of Ice Cream, it's kids and it's parents taking photos of kids with beautiful backgrounds. That's something that is desperately needed because we got rid of them. So I don't know. Everything has its own thing.
I haven't been there, but I heard that you cannot get any ice cream at the museum.
No, they have some. I went to 2 in 1 week, and that's how I got roped into doing it.
All right. So last question before we do Q&A.
Don't I get to give my future retail thing?
Oh yeah,
of course.
I got skipped.
Sorry,
that was one of those.
I'm sorry.
You go ahead.
Sorry, I'll be quick. No, I think so. It's not all products need retail, but certain products, like your product needs retail. People need to touch it, they need to smell it. Like wine needs retail. 20, for the wine industry, what is it, 98% of wine is consumed within 24 hours of purchase. Nobody else orders stuff online. They want it now. It's a grocery item. And so I spoke at this conference, it was like the design retail conference a couple of years ago, and they had this speaker, this data guy, that got booed off the stage. Because he basically was like, look, when artificial intelligence kicks in, basically what's going to happen is like everything can be made on demand. You can build factories to be like when you click a button on Amazon, a robot makes it, sends it to your house. And if robots are making everything, the cost of goods is just going to continually come down until it gets close to nothing. Stuff won't cost much. And so then why are you going out to interact with it? Because it's things that you need to interact with. But it's even stuff that we don't even think of, like what Elon Musk sold 200,000 of those totally kick-ass trucks, like without even, it's only built one and the window smashed, But nobody test drove that thing. They didn't touch it. Nobody's even seen it. And he sold 200,000 of them in a weekend. So you used to think, the things that you think might need retail probably maybe don't, and the things that you think might not, you might need it. I don't know, like it's about touching, it's about engaging with something, and it's about making it your own. If you don't buy that much stuff anymore, it has to be intentional. And the story is everything. With wine is all story. It's all story. Like, why do you buy this wine and not this wine? Well, I have a story about this one. I serve this wine at my wedding. The best thing you could ever do is have a wine served at your wedding. Like, those people will buy that wine for the rest of their life. It's about build this story. That's what you're drinking. And I think, with wine, that's why we did Rosé Mansion. It's so cool because, like, when you drink old wine, it's not necessarily good all the time, but like it's cool to be like, what was happening in 1980 when this came out? Or like I'll drink a wine from like 2008. Like, this is the year. These grapes were harvested the year I like launched my company. This wine is like, and it's just fun. It's a story. So that stuff's going to need retail. That stuff's going to need engagement. And then what products bring people together? Like it's a Milk Bar. They're opening all these like locations. Part of it is like they can also mail you cakes. Like, you could just run it. They do mail them. But like I think part of it's like you want the experience of going down there. You want the experience of them writing your name on it. You want this whole bit.
Is there personalization, like the increasing the fulfillment of our desire for personalization, a big part of it?
I would say so. Even if it's a little personalization. I don't know. They wear a lot of Converse shoes, and I was in Boston for a little while, and they have like, you can go make your own Converse. But they don't just print on them, like you get to pick the fabric, you get to pick what color, you get to design it. They don't do it online. You have to go to the store. And I think that's cool. But then there's also like are you buying something because then you get to tell those stories.
I mean, you also build like a relationship with the thing that you're buying.
And then small retail too. I think that's a big issue. It's like the small retailers, like the mom and pop, they're in Manhattan, like they don't exist in the wood states. But you go to like parts of Brooklyn, you can find some really cool little, like you're like, that's cool, and I know that you're doing that because your rent's like $800.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned something about small shops that struck me earlier in our conversation. That was about the idea of curation, right? And about how there are brands that are trying to do curation at a larger scale that really aren't successful with it because they don't have the perspective about what it means to be personal, right?
Yeah, I mean, and they think that, again, you can do great curation and then just put it up like a website, or like put it in a box, and maybe it'll sell, maybe it won't. But I think there are some, there's a great store called The Good Liver out in Los Angeles, and they have a fantastic selection of things, and you see their personal taste in what they put out and what they sell, and it's and they have a mix of things that have really great stories and things that are really hard to find. I mean, it's difficult to put together a retail experience of other brands that are not widely available on Amazon and everywhere else. I mean, you have to search far and wide. I mean, Kiosk, which was famous here, they just opened their little tiny thing. But even the stuff from Kiosk, we used to buy stuff there all the time. But there's a lot of stuff from Kiosk that you can now buy online from that was so unique when they used to sell it. You can just find it online and just buy it. So the idea of like these really, really unique things being only available at this one store, that's a pretty difficult thing to do. Having as a brand, like we used to sell a lot of third-party stuff, and Caswell-Massey was known for selling like these rare things, soaps from Europe that no one could get, and everything else. We stopped doing that a few years ago because all the stuff we were selling, we were never the cheapest place to buy it. We were never the best value to buy it. We sell our own brand. That's what we should be selling. That's where we should be investing our energy, and that's the part that has the stories and creating new things that have those stories.
So just really quick before we go to Q&As, what can we expect from your brand in the future?
From our brand?
Or from your store?
Well, like I said, we're our store. We call it the 10th generation, and like we have these partnerships with Yellowstone and New York Botanical Gardens. We're doing things with new fragrance creation. I mean, I was just telling this to someone else earlier, but heritage brands often think of themselves as like a dot at the end of their timeline. Like, here's my history, and here I am at the end, and I'm always at the end. I'm always like looking backwards at everything I did. And for a heritage brand, it's like a trap. For us, we think of ourselves like we're like a 600-year company. We're just 298 years through it right now. And, the next 300 years matter a lot, compared to the past. The past gives us a lot of credibility and a lot of trust with consumers. And we have all these amazing stories. But we have to think about that next 268 years and what are we going to do? And so much of, like even in the experience, we think of it as having like a combination of things from the past and things from the future.
Mhm.
I actually don't want to have a lot of stuff that feels like it's in the present. I actually want I want you to walk in there and feel like this is something I never saw before, that like this new technology for extracting molecules from plants that's like I've never seen it, I don't know what it is. And then here's the story of George Washington, and like this brand is a brand of this long epic. It's not a brand of just this moment that I'm in right now. I think that's really compelling to people from our brand, and we're trying to invest in that and carry that forward.
Thanks for Rosé mention.
I mean, I'm crazy, so like we're just getting started. So we're trying to figure out right now, like what is like one Rosé mansion, but like we're not necessarily just married to that. We like the formula a lot. The formula is really fascinating. Like again, it comes to about like groups, bringing groups together, pay your own way, making it easy, and giving people a place to come together. So we've spent about last year was a pop-up. That was an experiment. My business partner and I were like, let's see if this works. And like I said, we had like no staff. We had nobody. We ran everything ourselves. It was crazy. I didn't sleep at all. I'm not sleeping this year either, but for different reasons. And so this year we were like, oh, let's make this into a business. So it's about operations. It's about marketing. It's about sales. It's about all that boring stuff that I think is really fun. And we're getting to the point where we can like put any kind of like skin on it.
Mm-hmm.
Food and beverage, I think, is something that's really cool for us. We like it. We like, like all these other companies that are doing these like mini amusement park things, like Easy Ice Cream, Candytopia. It's all kids. We want to make an adult one. We keep screwing up. We're like, adult entertainment. No, you can't say that. That's not what we're doing.
No, not that kind of adult entertainment.
But like, so like, we're working, we're working on a project right now where we have like a famous artist that we want to build one out for, hopefully very soon, and then bring it to other cities. Like my last company, we did road shows. Like we're used to taking things on tour. And so where can we, what can we do with this? We have a ton of ideas, but, it's that core of like bringing people together, like have a few drinks or not, like, and we're super excited because like, we can use Rosé Mansion to like launch that. We have like a winery concept we want to do where like, you guys ever go to like Heaven in My Country? Maybe, yes, no. So everybody wants the winery experience, but they don't get it. Like you want to, like have lunch in the vineyard. You want to like drink things out of tanks with winemakers. I get to do that stuff, but you guys don't. So what if we just like artificially created it? Like what if we hired actors, because that's what we're doing now. We're trying to really get actors in there to like jazz up the place. And what if every day at 3:00, the tasting room manager and the winemaker got into a fight, and the vineyard manager broke it up, and you're drinking stuff out of tanks, and every night you get to have dinner on a big, huge field. Why don't we just make all the stuff that everybody wants to do? The wine doesn't have to make wine. We'll make it somewhere else, But it could be a fun thing to do. So that's what we're looking at. It's like adult amusement parks.
Yeah. Basically, applying your formula that is obviously successful working to new ideas.
Yeah, developing a formula like this.
Yeah. Cool.